I ordered a DNA test for my newborn daughter, and I haven't slept since. When Lily was born, I thought that would be the defining moment. I held her in my arms and expected my heart to explode with joy, like in the movies. But instead, I felt silence. Not reverent silence, but a hollow, prickly one. Lily cried, and I stared at her tiny wrinkled face, comparing her nose to mine. Her eye shape, her ears, too dark hair, an unfamiliar shape of the eyes. I kept telling myself, it's paranoia. But a voice in my head whispered, what if it's not? I wasn't always like this. Before the pregnancy, Jen and I lived like in a cozy sitcom, laughing at the same jokes, arguing over pizza choices, planning vacations. She got pregnant 6 months after our wedding, unexpected, but we were happy. Jen glowed. I bought parenting books, looked at strollers on the street, built tiny furniture in the garage. Everything seemed perfect, until one evening ruined it. It was September, warm and sticky, smelling of apples and fading leaves. Jen fell asleep early, exhausted after work. I went to turn off the night light and noticed her phone on the edge of the nightstand. The screen blinked. A message. You looked stunning today. As always. Sender. Mark. I knew the name. A coworker from her marketing team. Tall, athletic, charming. The type who hugs everyone hello, even if they've only met twice. That would have been nothing, if not for the tone. I opened their chat. Before that, discussions of some presentation, jokes about their boss, memes. Nothing incriminating. But the tone, it was soft, intimate, not obviously flirty, but close. I closed the phone and put it back. Said nothing, just lay down next to her and shut my eyes. But from that moment, it was like a splinter in my brain. Every time Jen laughed, I tried to guess, who was she really thinking of? She started smiling more, seemed to glow. I told myself it was just pregnancy. Or love, but deep down, doubt had already taken root. I tried to be better. Woke up earlier, made her breakfast, brought coffee to her office. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't just a husband, but a contestant auditioning for the role of father. Competing with someone I hadn't even seen. Comparing, guessing, obsessing. And Jen was warm, affectionate, grateful. Which made me feel even worse for suspecting her. By the 8th month, she was having back pain. Every night, I got up to bring her ice packs, massage her shoulders, brew chamomile tea. I knew exactly when she needed a hand to hold or when to just sit in silence. She'd laugh and say I was a super husband. Sometimes, I believed it. Other times, I didn't. The birth itself felt like a dream. Jen screamed, I held her hand, and my heart was pounding. Then, Lily's first cry. I thought I'd break into tears like in those hospital videos online. But I just stood there, watching a nurse swaddle her. I held her, and the first thing I thought was, who does she look like? Inside, there was a vacuum. Once we got home, relatives swarmed in. My mom instantly said Lily had Jen's nose, but that the chin was hard to place. I smiled, but something inside me shifted. Jen and I sat on the couch, Lily asleep on her chest. I tried not to look too long, afraid I'd start seeing things I didn't want to find. My mother-in-law came a few days later. Karen, cold stare, teacher's voice. She never liked me much, but that day she was weirdly nice. Helped with diapers, chopped fruit, cleaned our kitchen. Then, when I walked out of the nursery with Lily in my arms, she hugged me, out of nowhere, and said, "You're so caring, despite everything." I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked. She hesitated. "Oh, nothing. Just, not every man is this patient. You're a good one." But the words stuck in my brain. Despite everything. I repeated them for days. What everything? What did she know? I couldn't ask. It sounded insane. But every time Jen looked at me with love, I felt like a liar. Because I didn't trust her anymore. I started staring at Lily. Studying her. Hunting for resemblance. For proof. Or disproof. Sometimes I saw myself. Sometimes I saw Mark. And when I caught myself thinking that, I felt like a monster. She was a baby. My daughter. Why was I doubting? But doubt doesn't leave. It's like water dripping on a stone. It wears you down. I stopped sleeping. Woke up in cold sweats, checking if she was breathing. Not from fear, but because I couldn't believe she was mine. One night, I got up, went to the kitchen, poured coffee, and sat down at the table. It was quiet, just the ticking of the clock. I opened my laptop, typed, Newborn DNA test, home kit. Read reviews. Compared prices. Placed the order. Sent to my office. So Jen wouldn't know. I felt like a traitor. But more than that, a coward. Next morning, I watched Jen sleeping with Lily next to her. Her hair a mess, cheek pressed to the pillow. She looked peaceful, and I felt like a stranger in my own home. From that day, something shifted. Jen didn't know about the test. But maybe she sensed the distance. She still kissed me, still said she loved me. And I smiled, but I didn't believe myself. I didn't know what the test would say. Didn't even know what I wanted it to say. I just wanted to breathe again. To go back to how things were. To erase, despite everything. Just the three of us. Just a family. But what if all this was never real to begin with? I held the envelope with the results in my hands for almost 10 minutes, unable to open it. The lamp on my desk was too bright, the room too cold, and every creak in the house hit my nerves like an electric shock. I was alone. Jen had gone out for a walk with Lily, saying she needed some fresh air. Her voice was calm, but there was no warmth, no reproach. Just flatness, like I was talking to someone who had already started to leave. But it took a whole week of silence, of slow inner collapse and self-inflicted paranoia to get to that moment. When the DNA kit arrived at the office, I acted like a teenager sneaking into the teacher's lounge to steal test answers. I signed for the package, tucked it under my coat, exited through the back door even though no one was watching. Out in the parking lot, I looked around twice before getting in my car. Ridiculous. But inside, I was crumbling, not from fear of getting caught, but from shame I couldn't even fully admit to myself. That evening I told Jen I had to swing by the pharmacy. Instead, I drove to an empty parking lot near a postal drop box and sat in the car for 30 minutes, staring at the kit. There were cotton swabs, instructions, a return envelope. I took one swab and gently brushed the inside of Lily's cheek while she slept. My hands trembled, not from cold, from the weight of what I was doing. Every move screamed, "You're betraying your family." The second swab was for me. Mechanical, quick. I packed everything, sealed it, labeled it. Then I just stared at the box on the passenger seat like it was a bomb. I sent it the next day. And that's when the real hell began, the waiting. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. At work, my thoughts were jumbled, people's voices sounded muffled. Jen would talk on the phone, ask me questions, and it all passed through me like I was underwater. I wasn't hearing her words, just her tone, her breath, her pauses. I scanned them for clues. For blame. Or worse, indifference. 3 days later, I came home early. Jen was in the bedroom, Lily asleep. On the kitchen table were neatly stacked receipts, grocery lists, and a small piece of paper sitting right on the edge. It looked like a sticky note. But it wasn't. It was a scrap from the test kit packaging, with the lab's phone number and a barcode. I froze. Ice down my spine. I knew I left that. Which meant she found it. I waited. For her to come out, yell, cry, ask questions. But she didn't. She didn't come out at all. And from that moment, cliché as it sounds, everything changed. The next morning, she didn't kiss me on the cheek like she always did. Just walked past. When I asked how the night with Lily went, she answered, "Fine," flatly, without tone. Nothing more. I tried to talk to her, but she avoided eye contact. She didn't accuse me, but she didn't forgive me either. Just silence, as if she knew, or suspected, or didn't want to know, but already did. Those were the strangest days of my life. We lived under the same roof like strangers. Talked about dinner, diapers, water temperature, but nothing else. I tried to break through the silence. Brought her flowers, played her favorite playlists, put on old movies we used to watch eating noodles on the couch when we first started dating. Nothing changed. She wouldn't meet my eyes. And when she did, all I saw was quiet detachment so deep, I wanted to vanish. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She was frozen, inside. One night I woke to find her sitting at the edge of the bed, unmoving. Lily was sleeping between us. I propped myself up. "Is everything okay?" She didn't answer right away. Then said, without turning, "Why didn't you ask me?" I had no answer. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "You just went ahead and checked." Like I was some stranger off the street. Like everything we've been through doesn't count. I wanted to say I was scared. That I doubted myself. That it wasn't about her, it was about me. That I was terrified of raising a child who might one day say, "You're not my real father." But I stayed silent, because it all sounded weak. And too late. She got up and walked to the kitchen. I stayed in bed, unsure whether to follow, or leave her be, unsure of anything. The next morning, she was quiet again. But no longer hurt, firm. Like something inside her had died, and ice had taken its place. I kept waiting for the results. But the closer they came, the more I wished they never would. Because it didn't matter what that envelope would say. It was already too late. And I had already lost. Every morning started the same. I'd wake up before Jen, quietly get out of bed, walk to the kitchen, boil water, sit at the table, and stare at my mug. Empty, like everything else. Sometimes I poured coffee, but it would go cold untouched. Jen never showed up until I was in the shower. We no longer shared our morning ritual. She seemed to be deliberately avoiding me. Or maybe she just couldn't stand to see me. Maybe both. Silence became convenient. Too convenient. We only spoke when necessary. Passing Lily, passing the salt, passing time. Her voice became glassy, like a call center rep. No anger. No hope. I started to doubt if I'd ever really heard her true voice at all. One night, after Lily had gone to sleep, I walked into the kitchen. Jen was standing at the sink, washing bottles. I said, not really expecting a reply, "Remember the first time we cooked together?" She didn't turn around, but I saw her freeze just for a second. "You ruined the rice," she said. "You told me it was cute." "I was in love back then," she said quietly. That hit harder than I expected. But I didn't leave. I sat on the stool, hands on my knees. "So was I still am." "Don't," she cut me off. "Please." I fell silent, but her words stuck in me like a hook. I remembered that night, in our first apartment, the one with a view of a Chinese restaurant rooftop. We tried making pineapple chicken and rice, and everything burned. But it felt fun. Then we had sex on the kitchen floor under an old blanket. We laughed, drank white wine from mugs, and fell asleep wrapped around each other. I had trusted her then more than anyone before. Before Jen, there was only Emily, my first wife. We married young, back in college. I worked nights, she studied art history. One day, I came home early and found her with her professor. In our bedroom. No screaming, no scene. She just said, "It happened." I didn't cry, just packed a bag and left. Took me a whole year to really feel it. When I met Jen, I was guarded. Careful. For 6 months, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. But she was different. Open, kind, honest. I remember the first time I told her I was scared to trust again. And she said, "I won't be perfect. But I promise to stay." I believed her. Now those words felt like a cruel joke. It had been 6 days since I sent the test. I was checking my email every 30 minutes. I caught myself fearing the results, but also craving them. This waiting was killing me. Jen barely spoke to me. But I knew she was waiting too. She started going out to the balcony more, standing there for long stretches, staring at nothing. Sometimes I'd come stand beside her, but she wouldn't react. On the 7th day, at 10:32 a.m., the email came. "Your results are ready. Click the link below to view your report." I was sitting in my car in the supermarket parking lot. I opened the email, stared at the blue button. My hand trembled. I clicked. The report loaded fast. Paternity test result. No match. One line. Just one, and everything. I didn't feel relief. Not vindication, not anger. I felt emptiness, like something exploded inside me. Everything rushed out, air, thought, hope. I sat there staring at the screen, waiting for it to change. She's not my daughter. She is not my daughter. I kept repeating it in my head, and each time it sounded worse. Because now, I didn't know who I was. I wasn't a father, not a husband, not the man I thought I was. Just someone who built a life on sand. I closed the laptop, sat in the car for another hour. Then I drove home, slowly, very slowly, as if by the time I got there, the world might be different. As if it all could be undone. When I walked into the apartment, Jen was in the kitchen. She looked up, and she knew. I didn't say anything, just looked at her. She stayed quiet too, for a few seconds. Then she said, "I know. You read it." I nodded, and I wanted to ask, "Who is he?" I wanted to scream, punch the wall, throw a chair. But I just asked, "Why?" She looked away, and for the first time, I saw she wasn't angry. She was broken, tired. "It's not what you think," she said. "But I don't know how to explain." "Not right now," I nodded, not because I understood, but because I no longer knew how to live with any of it. I thought we had already said everything. That there was nothing left between us. No words, no explanations. The house felt like a museum. Everything in place, but no one touched anything. We lived side by side, but separately. Talked only about diapers, buckwheat, the power bill. Sometimes even that felt like too much. 2 days after I read the results, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Jen was at the stove heating up some soup. I was sitting at the table, spinning a spoon in my hands. Lily was asleep in the other room, and the apartment was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking. Every second sounded like a punch. "We need to talk," I said. She didn't turn around, just turned off the stove and put the spoon in the sink. Then slowly looked at me. "Go ahead," she said. I stood up, came closer. I didn't know where to start. My chest felt tight. "Why didn't you tell me the truth? Why did you let me believe Lily was my daughter?" She looked straight at me, calm, but her eyes looked tired. "Really tired, I knew," she said. "From the beginning, I just didn't know how to tell you. I was scared." "Scared of what? That I'd leave?" "Yes," she answered quietly. "I was scared of losing you. I didn't know how you'd react. I thought maybe, if you loved her, things would just work out." I clenched my fists. My voice was shaking. "Jen," I raised her. Changed her diapers, fed her at night, rocked her to sleep. I thought she was mine. "And you knew the whole time." She didn't look away, and then she said, very softly, "It wasn't just that I didn't tell you. I couldn't." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She sighed heavily and leaned against the table. "Because the pregnancy wasn't normal. It wasn't a mistake. It was rape." I didn't understand right away what she was saying. My heart started pounding. "Jen, what did you just say?" "I was raped. A month before we found out I was pregnant." I sat down. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. "Who?" "A guy from my old job. We ran into each other one night. He offered to drive me home. I got in his car. He didn't take me home." She paused for a few seconds. Her voice got quieter. "I tried to say no. I really did, but he didn't listen. He did what he wanted, then dropped me off like nothing happened." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just sat there. I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't hear anything but her voice. I went to the police the next day. Filed a report, did the medical exam. They followed all the steps. But they closed the case. He said it was consensual. He showed them old texts where I smiled, where I said thank you for a coffee. That was enough. That was all it took. She looked down. I didn't even know I was pregnant. When I found out, I made an appointment for an abortion. But then I went for an ultrasound. I saw the heartbeat, and I couldn't go through with it. I decided, this was a baby. A person, not part of what happened, but something separate. Something that gave me hope. She went quiet. I kept sitting there, staring at the floor. Everything in me was a mess. I wanted something simple, clear, black or white, but nothing was. "Why didn't you tell me when we found out about the pregnancy?" "Because I thought you'd leave. And I loved you. A lot. I didn't want to lose you. But you lost me anyway," I said. She looked at me. Didn't cry. Just nodded. "Yeah, I did." We sat in silence. The kitchen felt small and heavy. I walked over to the window and opened it. The night air was warm. I could hear people talking outside, a dog barking somewhere. Life was going on like nothing happened. But for us, everything was frozen. "I don't know what to do now," I said. "Me neither," she said. "Lily. She's not to blame." "I know," Jen said. "She's just a baby. And she loves you. I see the way she looks at you when you walk into the room. How she reaches out for you. You're her dad, even if it's not biological." I nodded. I couldn't say anything more. "If you want to leave, I get it," she added. I looked at her. "I don't know what I want. I just know I need time." She didn't argue. She stood up, served me a bowl of soup, and placed it in front of me. "Eat. It'll get cold." I nodded, and we sat in silence. Each with our own pain. But at least, for once, not completely alone. Chapter 5. Who am I now? 2 weeks had passed. I was still living at home, but I felt like a guest. Like every step, every move needed permission. I slept on the couch in the living room. Not because Jen asked me to. She didn't say anything. I just couldn't lie next to her. Not after everything. I looked at Lily and felt myself breaking apart inside. I still fed her, changed her diapers, held her when she cried. But every time she reached out for me, something twisted in my chest. Not anger, pain, because she was part of my life, but not mine. Not really. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. But a few days after Jen told me everything, I called my friend Josh. We'd been through a lot together. Divorces, layoffs, late-night calls. I thought he'd understand. But after I told him, he just said, "Dude, you need to leave. This is too much. She lied to you for a year. That's messed up." I nodded on the phone, but I wanted to yell. What's the right thing to do then? Walk away? Pretend none of it happened? Pretend the kid who calls me, Dada, means nothing? Then I told my mom. Not everything. Just that Lily wasn't biologically mine. She listened quietly, then said, "I always felt she didn't really look like you. But you're a good man. Do what you think is best. Just don't let anyone walk all over you." That made me angry, not because it was mean, but because it was so normal. Like this was just a regular problem. Like a child is something you can just return. I booked a session with a therapist. At first, I just wanted someone to listen. The office was quiet, beige walls, comfy chair. I told her everything, start to finish. She didn't interrupt, just listened. Then she asked, "What do you feel now when you look at Lily?" "Everything," I said. "Guilt, anger, love, fear. And when you look at Jen? I don't know. It hurts. I want to trust her, but I can't." "Do you feel she betrayed you?" "I think so, but I also get why she didn't say anything. It just doesn't help." She nodded, wrote something down, then said, "You're standing between two versions of yourself. Who you were before, and who you are now. And you don't know which one is real." That line stuck with me. I thought about it every day. In the evenings, I sat on the bench outside our building. Sometimes with coffee, sometimes just sitting. Watching Lily run around on the grass, Jen bringing out a blanket for her. Sometimes she'd glance at me. Sometimes not. We didn't talk about anything personal. Just groceries. Doctor visits. One night I walked into the bedroom while Jen was asleep. Lily was curled up beside her. I stood there for a while, just watching her sleep. And I realized I couldn't leave. I didn't want to. She wasn't mine by blood. But she knew my voice, reached for me, laughed when I tickled her belly. That wasn't fake. I started talking to the therapist about that. I asked, "Can I be a father even if I'm not, officially?" She said, "Aren't you already one?" That question was simple, but it hit hard. A few days later, I started coming back to life, little by little. I still slept on the couch, but I spent more time with Lily. We watched cartoons, played with clay, walked to the park. She hugged me like always. And I was learning how to feel like I belonged again. Jen and I started talking too. Awkwardly, at first. Slowly. She didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't ask for explanations. We'd already been through all that. But we started to actually hear each other. No defenses. No blaming. "I don't know how this ends. We haven't talked about the future. We're just getting through each day. Sometimes that's enough." Today, I was sitting on the same bench. Lily was playing nearby. Jen was reading a book. It was quiet, warm, peaceful. I opened my email, just out of habit. Between the newsletters and junk mail, one new message stood out. No subject, no name, just a random email address. I opened it. I don't know why I'm writing. Maybe because I can't stay silent anymore. "I'm the one who sent Jen that message you saw. Yeah, I'm Mark." I didn't know what had happened to her. When the truth came out, I realized I was part of something I didn't understand. I want to apologize. To her. To you. To the kid. I didn't know. But I know now. And I'm ashamed. I'm sorry. I read it again. And again. My heart was racing, but not from rage. Not from pain. From something else. Someone had finally said they were wrong. Even just a little. I put the phone down on the bench and looked at Lily. She laughed, then turned to me and said, "Daddy, look." And in that moment, I understood something. Maybe I'm not her father by blood. But I stayed. I didn't run. And maybe, that means something.